Welcome to Joburg Today. I am your host, Leroy Viaggi. The City of Joburg, the SAPS, and various community stakeholders recently held an anti-drug campaign in Rossettenville designed to encourage people in the area to report drug and criminal activities.
We are here in Luthando Park in Rossettenville, joining the MMC with various stakeholders in a fight against drugs, which will see a march joined by school children and various stakeholders.
I can't express my happiness when I see children and young people, getting themselves involved in fighting against drugs. The communities behind this drugs drive, or against the drugs drive. You see, the drugs is plaguing our society, from our children, from our parents, to our families, uncles, brothers and sisters. A lot of the drug dealers target our youth because they think this is the market that they want to do business with. It's the illegal business, it's wrong. But unfortunately, many of our youngsters get involved and get hooked into this world of drugs. Starting at such a young age, I see a lot of school children out here and I'm very positive, I'm very happy. And I certainly hope and I want to call upon our young people to take the message through to our communities to say no to drugs.
There was a couple of years ago we had some children that were actually found dead on the streets from using what they call huffing, and some of the kids had actually inhaled it to such an extent that one of them was actually found on the streets and he was dead. And that is the reason why we decided that we needed to start educating the people around here about the scourge of drugs and how to overcome them.
We as a Spar Motorcycle Owners Group, SMOG, joined in because we store owners and we share the same passion, which is motorbikes and the causes for drugs, charity, child abuse, cancer, stunts. We join into all those things because it's a worthy cause and it's something that we believe we can get South Africa right with.
The anti-drug march was followed by an opening of a new police contact center in the area.
What we need to understand is that those people that are involved in drugs comes from families, and we can work jointly, so the parents of those children or adults that are involved in drugs have to work with the police. We cannot make it only the responsibility of the police in the fight against drugs. We are being paid to actually eliminate the concept of drugs, and we will do whatever in our power in order to work with the community in order to get rid of these perpetrators.
School learners played a crucial role in this march to eradicate drugs, and this is what they had to say.
In my street, they actually use small children to go to the cars and give the drugs and stuff. So I think that this has raised awareness and helped the community come forward and say no to drugs.
I think that this march has had a huge impact on our environment in terms of when we were marching, I noticed that there were a lot of bystanders. Even though they weren't participating in the march, they could see that there were a lot of youth from different schools that feel that drugs in our communities is really bad towards our future and the country itself.
I believe that it's a major problem in our communities because it's affecting our education of our youth. And I believe that everyone has a future and drugs are just a roadblock, basically.
In Diversity High, we have a few incidents involving drug use and everything, and we have seen learners, our peers, being arrested and literally incarcerated for months because of drug abuse. And that, I think that's what's gave us the spunk, should I say, encouraged us to come and join the march because we can relate firsthand to how drugs affect the youth.
I'm Ray for Joburg Today.
Be a part of the conversation by liking our Facebook page, that's joburgtoday.tv, and following the real trend in Joburg on our Twitter account at Joburg Today. It's back to school for the newly elected local government councillors as they are put through their paces by the South African Local Government Association in a 5-day induction program. Now, we were there, and this is what went down.
They respect that sometimes the answer is no, but don't just leave it there. Explain why it's no, and give them potentially an opportunity of another avenue to attack the problem they have. If you do that, you're doing your job incredibly well.
Covering more than just legislation, SALGA facilitators and councillors across the party line giving each other tips on communication skills and conflict resolution. Seasoned councillor Graham de Kock still values this training.
And I think it's really important that we go through them every time, because you tend to forget certain things in your line of business, and you only deal with what you're required to deal with. And it's pertinent that we're reminded about the legislation that governs our behaviour all the time.
You come into a new thingy, and then you think you've got an idea of exactly what is happening. And then as soon as you get in there, you discover that there's much more bigger than what you thought it was. But I'm happy because after that discovery, we've also been armed with the tools of how can we be able to shoulder all this responsibility, because it's a huge responsibility to represent the people, more especially when we live in a city like Johannesburg, when we've got varieties of communities and challenges.
The focus is around them understanding the legislative framework within which they are expected to operate in. Secondly, what the roles of councillors are, what the roles of the municipal council as a collective is, and what is expected from them to deliver services that they promised during the election campaign to communities, what that actually entails and how they should go about doing that.
This year's training, I think, is far more structured. We've got a really wonderful manual that SALGA has produced, and I think it contains a huge amount of information which is going to be very useful to all of us in the 5 years that we're going to be in office. And so, yes, I'm delighted that they've stepped up their game, and I think formalised it and probably using it as a formalised training program.
So for me, the Municipal Financial Management Act have been one of the most important learnings because it taught me of the processes that each municipality should be able to follow as far as the finances are concerned.
But there is, of course, always room for suggestions.
I really would like to see the manual that they've produced in electronic form, and I don't know if that's possible, but if that could be distributed to councillors, because then again, one could use that as an easy reference without having to drag a fairly heavy book around. It also gives you the opportunity to use that information to train activists and people who we identify who potentially could be really good councillors in the next term.
I think there should be more intensive workshop going forward. But this, for a start, they've been very informative.
Over the next 18 months, what we intend doing is to have portfolio-based training, and they will then get an accredited certificate at the end of that training program.
It sounds like Councillor Novela's wish will be granted, and Johannesburgers could also expect service from well-informed and trained councillors. Marisa de Klerk, Joburg Today.
Hi, I'm Danny Glover, and you're watching Joburg Today.
Well, that's it for today's show, but if you want to know more about what's happening in and around Johannesburg, you better check out our playlist. From me, Leroy, and the guys behind the scenes, till next time.